Here are some tips for surviving topside in Arc Raiders. First and foremost, never sneak up on a raider unannounced. When fighting Arc enemies and using your weapon, you're making noise that other raiders can hear, so always be on the lookout for that third party from raiders in the area. Try and learn the map layouts as quickly as you can, as it will help you understand routes that the enemy can take and let you cut them off on their way to different places. Always expect a third party even after a third party. Noise attracts enemies, especially raiders. When being attacked with low health, be sure to use the third person to your advantage by keeping your character behind a safe wall. You can rotate your camera outside and see where the enemy's coming from. Also, use arcs to your advantage. If you see somebody being tased by a hornet, make sure you capitalize on that and finish them up. On the flip side of that, if you hear a raider attacking enemies, that's a good chance for you to third party them. Fighting a raider from as far away as possible is usually the best choice, as it keeps you the most safe and the arc generally will not aggro to you after you've eliminated the raider. You can make the choice to trust raiders, but I have found little success with doing that. In this case, trying to just leave that raider alone, I end up getting shot in my back. When you do get attacked, try and dodge roll to avoid the next incoming shot. Get behind some solid bit of cover and recharge your shields as quickly as possible. You need to be ready for them to push you, because with you being that low, they're absolutely going to push in on that fight. Make sure if somebody does shoot you in the back that you remind them that it was a bad idea to do so. If you hear people fighting, it means other raiders hear people fighting, so as you're pushing into third party, be careful where you choose to knock out and loot your enemy opponents. With the raider flare going up when an enemy is eliminated, it gives a lot of players a direct location to where you are, and anyone in the area can show up quickly without warning. Try not to stay out in the open looting the player for too long. Make sure you grab only the important things that you need in that moment and then get yourself back to cover. Moving slowly and walking is a great way to hear if there's enemies in the area, but it also makes you super vulnerable. Again, getting shot in the back, it's important to dodge roll and find cover as quickly as possible, and if you can, return fire and add damage to the enemy to make it less possible for them to push onto you. Get your shields recharging and then prepare for them to push, and then finish up the fight. Always expect another player and give yourself time to listen to see if anybody in the area is pushing on you. Always keep your eyes peeled for an enemy trying to sneak up on you. After making a lot of noise and fighting other raiders, be careful getting into a long standoff with someone. This leaves your back exposed and you can be snuck up on easily. This raider makes the mistake of going for a knockout too soon, and the player I was stalemated with ends up eliminating them. If you hear a raider looting in the building that you're in, you can always use noise to your advantage to draw them to your location. A single gunshot, some rattling of you searching around in a drawer is usually enough to get their attention, and you can set up a trap for them to walk into. Wait for them to enter the room and then surprise them from behind. Finish the elim as quickly as possible and then you're free to loot. Notice how when you're indoors, the raider flare doesn't go outside, so it makes it a lot less possible for other raiders to know where that knockout happened. Sometimes you won't be able to return fire on an enemy because you don't know where they're hitting you from. In that case, it's best to break line of sight, use any equipment you need to ensure your stamina is up, like an adrenaline shot, and then you can also use a smoke grenade to obscure where you're going. In this case, they lose total line of sight and assume that you're continuing to run and disengage, but hiding in a nearby bush allows you to be safe and secure and out of their sight. You may have to wait here for a little while until they clear away, but once they do, you're free to get back to your looting. Not every raider is out for blood. You can always try and defuse a tense situation by using the emote wheel, by letting them know that you're friendly and that you don't mean them any harm. While it can be risky to put your life in the hands of another player, sometimes it's the better choice to get out safely with somebody else than to try and get out in an aggressive way against a player. If you do find yourself being knocked down by an enemy player as the elevator is open, you can always crawl in and pull the lever to return to Speranza. If the doors close in time, you're safe. If the enemy makes it inside, they have less than 5 seconds to try and knock you out and loot you. This means at the very least they can't loot you. If you're looting an enemy that has a lot of items that you want and you don't have bag space, pick up what you can carry, get yourself to a safe little place like a bush nearby, and do your inventory management there. This will keep you out of sight from arcs and prying eyes of other raiders. You can hear an enemy breaching through a door, which will give you a moment in time to reposition yourself into a better spot. You never know what's going to come through a breach door, so play safe until you understand fully what's going on. If you see any sort of violence, make sure you take out the player that poses the highest threat and get yourself into a safe place to perform the knockouts. Once you have knocked out both players and you're going to move to loot them, make sure you do shield up first before you do that, and close any open doors that you can to shut off line of sight. This just makes it safer for you to loot the enemies you've just knocked out. Before taking zip lines, make sure you're fully reloaded and healed up. You never know what's going to be on the other side of them. If you eliminate an enemy on top of a ledge or up on height, make sure you don't follow them if they drop off the ledge. Enemies that are downed will not take damage when they fall, but you as a living player totally will. Make sure you find a safe way down to wherever they dropped off to, and then knock them out. For the arc enemies on the map, the louder they are, the more dangerous they are. This makes enemies like the Leaper and the Rocketeer some of the most dangerous to come across in the game. But what you might not realize about the enemies in this game is they will work together for your demise. In this case, a laser on top of the turret lasers me, which calls the Rocketeer to my exact location. The only way to get safe is to break line of sight from the laser and hope the Rocketeer doesn't blow you up. Before taking zip lines, make sure you clear any enemies in the nearby area. If you don't, you might leave yourself totally exposed and take tons and tons of damage just taking the zip line. Besides the turret, the Leaper, and the Rocketeer, there are plenty more smaller enemies that are just as dangerous and just as deadly if you're not careful. There are a couple different rolling small enemies that seem potentially harmless, but are actually very deadly. One of them is a fireball, which is a rolling ball that will spew fire if you let it get too close to you. When you eliminate a fireball, it will also explode into a ball of fire and set the area around it on fire too. Enemies that are caught in that AoE will also take damage and go down if enough is applied. When you loot a fireball, you can also get a part from them, a fireball burner, which you can put into your own inventory and then throw it at enemies to create a small, similar fire AoE effect. Ticks are small spider-like enemies that will leap onto your face if you're not careful. If you see that one's attached to your face, make sure that you spam the input that's presented to you. The other rolling enemy in the game that you need to look out for is a pop. Pops are similar to the fireball in the sense that they're going to roll at you and try and get close, but unlike the fireball, the way that the pop is going to try and apply damage to you is by self-destructing once it gets close enough to you. There are multiple flying drone-like enemies in the game. The most dangerous of them is the Hornet. The Hornet has 4 thrusters, 2 of which are armored in the front. It also has a mounted taser that will deal a lot of damage to both your shields and your health. Not only will it deal damage, but it also slows you down for a moment in time, making you more vulnerable to other damage from other enemies. Snitches are also drone-like enemies, but their only role is to snitch on you and to call in additional enemies to your location. Once you've engaged with a snitch, you only have a short period of time to eliminate it before it calls for backup. If you fail to eliminate a snitch in time, a random set of enemies is going to spawn on your location. These enemies will immediately start to target you, so you need to be on your toes and be ready to adjust to the different types of enemies that you're facing. If you see the yellow light appear above its head, you are close to having additional enemies spawn on your location. The snitch will emit a noise as it begins to call in enemies, so the minute that you hear that noise, you know that the enemies are coming, regardless if you eliminate it right after that. That sound it makes is the determining factor for when enemies are being spawned in. Wasps are also a drone-like enemy and act a bit like a hornet, but instead of tasering you, they will just shoot you with a mounted weapon. They will do a lot of damage in a short period of time, so make sure that you take them out. They are easier to take out than the Hornet, as none of their thrusters have armor. So take out 2 thrusters and you'll take them down. Every weapon in the game has an armor penetration rating attached to it. Weapons like the sniper have a higher armor penetration rating, whereas the smaller weapons like the Beretta pistol have a much weaker armor penetration rating. This makes the amount of damage that you apply to certain enemies more or less depending on that rating value. As an example, with a weaker armor penetration rating, the Beretta will take much longer to eliminate a Hornet. That's because of the armor the Hornet has. It takes longer for the Beretta to get through it, and as a result, you spend a lot more time and a lot more ammunition fighting a Hornet with the Beretta. This can put you at great risk for getting third-partied by other raiders and even other arc enemies. Whereas using something like a Rattler, which has a moderate armor penetration value, will take them down much faster. This can make a difference between living and dying when you're topside. Make sure you never engage arc enemies without having a plan for how you're going to take them on. Trying to fight them in an open area is a surefire way to get yourself eliminated. You need to make sure that you have some cover, a strong enough weapon, a high armor penetration value, and enough healing to repair the damage that you're likely going to take. If you try and fight them in the open without these things, you are definitely going to find yourself headed back to Speranza without any loot. Always try and make sure that you have an escape plan or some level of protection in case you get into a fight that you're not sure you're going to win. In this case, by getting pinned in with very little ammo, a low armor penetration weapon, and not much room to breathe, I run outside across a jolt mine that I placed earlier, which will stun the enemies once they cross it. From there, I use a noisemaker grenade, which allows me to throw it at a distance away from me, and it will distract the enemies for a short enough time, letting me heal myself up, hit myself with an adrenaline shot, and then get out of dodge. Sometimes you're not going to have what you need to deal with the enemies that are attacking you, and the best thing that you can do is just run and retreat and try and get as far away as possible. The enemies will eventually disengage if you run far enough away. Sometimes retreat is the only way and is the best option for you to stay alive and make it back to Speranza while you're still breathing. If you see an enemy like a wasp or a hornet hovering in place with a red light on but not attacking anything, it usually means that it's downed a raider at that exact location. Eliminate that arc enemy and then go to where it was hovering, and you'll probably find a raider body that you can loot for free. If you've exhausted all your ammunition and you're tired of trying to deal with a hornet or a wasp in your area, you can always use a grenade. Some grenades will actually stick to the enemy and then explode after a short delay. This can be an easy way to take down a flying enemy that has a lot of armor that you don't want to deal with, and it just feels really good to accomplish. When you spawn into a round, take a look at how much time is remaining. You can spawn anywhere in between 30 minutes, which is a full round, all the way down to 18 minutes or so. This is going to greatly change your strategy, so keep an eye out for the timer when you spawn in. One of the most important things for you to manage in this game is your stamina. All actions in the game, from running to climbing, use some amount of your stamina, and you'll need to pay attention to how much it's draining for each action that you do. Walking does not drain your stamina, it will help it recharge a little bit, and then crouching will let you charge a little bit faster. So keep an eye on your stamina and make sure you manage it as best as you can. If you don't manage it very well, you're going to find yourself in trouble, as when you run out of stamina, you're really exposed to any of the threats that are in the area. So as you're running away from enemies, just remember that you have a set amount of time that you can run for, and dodge rolling and sprinting will drain your stamina faster. If you find yourself stamina drained and in a dangerous spot, one of the best things that you can do is use a smoke grenade. Smoke grenades will provide you 100% cover as long as you're inside of it. Arcs cannot see you inside of the smoke, so you have a moment to heal up and do whatever you need to get yourself safe. While you're in the smokes, be careful. If you eliminate enemies like the fireball, it will create an AoE fire that's going to actually damage you. The smoke will not actually put out the fire, so be careful of doing that. One of the best ways to manage your stamina is using adrenaline shots. Adrenaline shots will fully refill you and allow you to run without draining for a short period of time. You can field craft adrenaline shots as well as bandages by speccing into one of the talents on the talent tree. You will take fall damage if you fall from a great height, but you can avoid some of that fall damage if you quickly roll once you hit the ground. This will preserve your health and also is a little bit quieter than falling flat on your feet. Security cameras on the walls in some of the buildings will beep to alert you of raider presence. You can either destroy them to prevent the beeping from occurring, or leave them be to let you know if somebody is following you. Raider hatch keys can be found randomly around the maps and are very, very important to keep in your safe pocket. These keys allow you to exit the map to Speranza without having to take an extraction point. You can find where hatches are located on your map. You can harvest from plants and trees located around the map. This will give you different items that you can use to restore small amounts of your health. While the map will show you where the most valuable loot can be found, you might be surprised to learn that you can find pretty valuable loot, even highly valuable loot, on some places that are not marked very obvious on the map. Here for Dam Battlegrounds, when I'm on the very outside corner, there's the one spot where I've found a lot of weapons, a lot of weapon mods, and a lot of ammo for those weapons. Don't be afraid to explore to different places that might not seem as obvious. You can find keys while you're looting, and these keys will unlock certain areas on different parts of the map. You can find a key for the map you're currently on, as well as a key for another map. Using a key to get into one of the locked rooms will provide you access to some very, very valuable loot. It is very advantageous to find these keys and to loot the rooms that they go to. As you're looting all of this valuable stuff, you're going to find yourself running out of space in your inventory. In order to manage that, you can add weapon mods to the weapons that you're currently using, which will free up space in your backpack. Additionally, while you're looting, you can actually salvage directly out of the container itself, which will reduce the amount of weight that you're carrying. This can be really helpful for managing your bag space and managing the inventory that you're picking up. You can find supply drop beacons located randomly around the map. They look like a tall antenna kind of sitting a little bit out of place, and at the base of it is a radio for you to interact with that will shoot up a raider flare to start the supply drop. Keep in mind that as you shoot up that raider flare, it may draw other raiders to you, so be careful. Shortly after the raider flare goes off, you will see a balloon dropping in the supply drop nearby to where the antenna is. Looting that supply drop will give you access to some pretty good loot, and if you happen to have made friends that want to come see what's in the supply drop, take only what you need and share the rest. This is a good way to ensure that you stay friendly with raiders on the map with you. You may find weapon blueprints while you're looting, and these can be used once you're back in Speranza, which will allow you to then be able to craft them at the gunsmith. Epic items have a unique sound when you find them while you're looting. When you are looting, it's best to try and loot from a place of cover, so find the nearest wall that you can get behind while you loot. You may find large boxes on the map that you can carry. These are known as field crates. If you carry a field crate to a field depot, you can collect a bunch of loot from it once you turn it in. Be careful though, as you're carrying the field crate, you walk incredibly slow, and if anybody shoots you, you'll have to drop the field crate first before you can do anything to return fire and protect yourself. You may find some zip lines located around the map. All you need to do is interact with them when prompted, and it will give you a shorter way back to where you came from or to another place on the map. Once a match is beginning to wind down, you will start to see additional drones and enemies in the area. You can also see them coming in from the sky and then crashing down to the ground. The earthquake that you feel is a good warning sign that the match is almost over and you have very little time to get back to Speranza. As you are trying to extract to Speranza, I've found smoke grenades are a really great way of giving yourself cover while you pull the lever and the doors close. If you get knocked down before you can extract, you can always press the button to interact with the elevator, but your health will continue to drain no matter what. If you're lucky, the elevator will arrive and you can crawl in and pull the lever and get yourself back to Speranza before you bleed out. Back in Speranza, it takes less materials to repair your shield than it would to build a shield recharger to recharge it while you're topside, so take advantage of that while you're there. Additionally, there are unique challenges that you can complete to earn creds. Creds allow you to unlock things on your raider deck, from different hairstyles to different equipment to different gear to wear, that can be helpful when you enter topside. That's going to be it for me today, y'all. Thanks for watching.